Speeches that changed the world. I'll begin by reading an introduction from Simon Sebag Montefiore. I want to apologize for my foreign pronunciation as I'm not a native English speaker, but I'll do my best to read as clearly as I possibly can. So, introduction by Simon Sebag Montefiore. A great speech does not just capture the truth of its era. It can also capture the big lie. This wonderful collection of speeches contains uplifting hymns to democratic freedom that encapsulates the principles of decency and liberty that we cherish. Good words that enlighten the world. But we can also read some of the most despicable speeches that darkened the horizons of the free world. It is the speeches by the monsters of history that are the real lessons. Many of these speeches contain eternal truths, particularly a classic such as the Gettysburg Address, or less known orations by those such as Václav Havel, dissident and future Czech president, or Chaim Herzog, Israeli president. As a rule, simplicity of language marks superb speech-making, as with Mohammed, Jesus, or Martin Luther King, and it helps when the orator has written the words himself. But mainly, reek of evil and folly, their lesson is that fine, philanthropic words can mask and distort as much as they reveal and enlighten. Some speeches are distinctly Orwellian. Some are simply untrue. Some wicked, and some we can simply judge better now with the tool of historical hindsight. Emperor Napoleon's farewell to the old guard is tear-jerking hokum, because he had never put his country before himself, and his ambitions had layered the fields of Europe with the bodies of the young and innocent. Two speeches show bad men as a superb political animals. In Lenin's All Power to the Soviets speech in September 1917, it is hard to count the lies, for he had no intention of giving power to the Soviets, the peasants, or the workers. Power was for himself and his party oligarchs. The disdain and cynicism are overwhelming. Adolf Hitler's speeches reveal his virtuosity as a political agitator, national actor, and speech writer, but are riddled with cynical, brutal lies and camp, ludicrous posturing. Conversely, though Stalin's views are despicably ruthless, the self-consciously modest cobbler's son delivers them with surprising plainness. Then, of course, there are the poseurs, the deluded, and the well-intentioned. We have Richard Nixon, who promised to prevent the very whitewash he was determined to accomplish. General Douglas MacArthur's farewell is magnificent but reeks of vain delusion. When President Mikhail Gorbachev praised freedom of choice, he certainly did not mean his own people to receive so much of it that they threw him out, along with his beloved communism. Neville Chamberlain is even more the butt of the sad joke of hindsight in his Peace on Our Time speech. It is hard to imagine a greater error of judgment and more pathetic delusion of achievement expressed in simple words. Many of these speeches thus reveal the character flaws and virtues of their orators, but each is also a window onto a great occasion in history. In the age of radio or television, most people would recall where they were when they heard George W. Bush's speech on 9/11, Franklin Roosevelt's after Pearl Harbor, or Vyacheslav Molotov's stammered reading of what were actually Stalin's words after the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union. Speeches delivered spontaneously are even more powerful. Charles I's address must have been unforgettable, but it reveals the stubborn arrogance and proud pathos of the doomed monarch. Lord Protector Cromwell's dismissal of Parliament reveals both his furious will and sanctimonious conviction of divine providence. Yet, for me, the best speech is one that marks no great event but merely pinpoints with splendid language, moral rigor, and righteous fury the essence of all decent civilization, a theme that runs through so many of these speeches. Elie Wiesel's Millennium Address on the Perils of Indifference. We should know all these speeches, but if the reader remembers just Wiesel's thoughts on history and the private individual, this book will truly have succeeded.